Thank you all for joining us. We hope today is an opportunity to learn more about trust services and how Windward partners with our clients with a trust service offering. So I am Drew Osborne, CEO, Senior Wealth Manager at Windward Private Wealth Management, and I'm joined today by Emily Petty, Chief Operating Officer, Wealth Manager here at Windward. Hello, Emily.
Hey, Drew.
First, a note that within the Zoom webinar screen, there should be a button at the bottom middle labeled Q&A to send us a question. So if you think of a question in the webinar, feel free to send it our way at any point. We may have a few minutes at the end to answer those questions. And if either we run out of time or don't feel like it's a question for the whole group, we'll make sure to reach specifically out to you so that we can kind of talk those things through. So, all right. Well, here at Windward, our work in general with clients generally covers three categories. We offer wealth management for individuals and families, tax planning and tax services, and then this third piece that we're talking about today, trust services. So why should you be listening to this? The place that I'm going to start is to help explain what trust services are and who they may be for. So want to take a step back and talk for a second about two basic kinds of trusts. Two of those being revocable trusts and irrevocable trusts. So you may have a revocable trust, which is also known as a living trust. It's a legal document created during one's lifetime to manage one's assets. And that trust, it could be amended, it could be revoked at any time, and it remains private as it's a living trust. But when the grantor dies, and if it's a married couple, often the second grantor dies, that trust becomes irrevocable. Irrevocable trusts generally can't be changed or terminated, and someone other than the grantor generally manages that trust, that irrevocable trust, and that person who manages it is called the trustee. So often at death, a trust can go two paths. Scenario one, a trust is in place to help distribute assets after the person dies. And finalizing a trust like that can take anywhere from 3, 6, 12 months for everything to be distributed and finalized and followed the trust. And the whole purpose of it was just to help smooth the process, keep privacy, and ultimately that trust is not ongoing. But scenario two is a trust, and at this point, it's likely an irrevocable trust that may be ongoing after the person dies. Reasons for that could be that there are beneficiaries who are minors, and can't custody the assets themselves at that point. There could be terms for the trust to provide income for certain beneficiaries over certain points in time, or to reach certain terms. And that trust in general may be in place for several years or many years. And when a trust is ongoing like that, a trustee may benefit from Windward's trust services. So there are typically like three different ways the management of an irrevocable trust can go. There, first being a corporate trustee who steps in to professionally manage the process. Two, an individual who has experience and training for the trustee role themselves. Or three, it may be a family member who's asked to be the trustee, and they likely have little to no experience doing that before. So that's who this webinar is mainly the target for. Those family members asked to serve as a trustee of an irrevocable trust, and they haven't done it before. So quick little comment, Windward itself, we can't be the trustee for a client. We would have custody of those assets, and that's against the rules of what we can do. But we'll talk here more about how Windward may be able to help. So I'm going to pause for a moment and talk just for a moment about the difference between a corporate trustee versus an individual assigned as a trustee. So some professional trustees, like a bank that has trust service department, they may be able to provide all sorts of trustee services, investment management, tax preparation, administrative duties, etc. And having a professional trustee is an option worth considering. Some of our Windward clients, they have set up with their own, currently, revocable trusts that they may have a professional trustee after, they've both passed, a professional trustee to do a lot of the trust services, but they still want Windward involved with the investment management. And there are professional trustees, some that allow Windward to still be the investment manager on the trust while the corporate trustee handles the other trustee duties. So I bring that up because if your trust names a professional trustee and you want Windward involved even after you may be gone, let us know so we can kind of help explain and talk through some of those options. So with that professional talk aside, most of the rest of this conversation and webinar is aimed at individuals who are serving as trustee of an ongoing irrevocable trust. And we'll explain how Windward's trust services could help trustees manage, protect assets, pass wealth on to beneficiaries, and help guide through the tax and administrative actions for a trust. So we are going to use the following hypothetical scenario as an illustration for how Windward may be able to help with our trust services.
Yeah, so today we're going to be using the example of Erica Stone. And Erica recently lost her father, Gary, to a terminal illness. And now Erica and her two brothers are now co-trustees and beneficiaries of the Stone Family Trust. The house that Gary lived in and his brokerage account with individual stocks are in the trust. And Gary also had an old 401k from an old time employer that he had rolled into a traditional IRA. And those are kind of the primary assets that Gary had when he passed. And um, the house and the brokerage account are titled in the name of the trust. The traditional IRA named Gary's late wife as primary beneficiary, and then their trust as the contingent beneficiary. And Erica and her two brothers, as trustees, have come to us with several questions.
Yep. And the first of those questions being, okay, we're trustees. Why is being a trustee a big deal? And, at a high level, trustees, most importantly, they act as fiduciaries, that they are legally bound to do what's in the best interest of the trust. So the responsibilities are high. And a lot of people don't have meaningful experience administering trusts or interpreting legal documents, managing estates, coordinating on trust taxes, and investing trust assets prudently. So there's potential for liability if the fiduciary role is not fulfilled or if it's just frankly mismanaged. And trust implementation involves a lot: asset management, compliance, record keeping, legal, ethical responsibility. And so what we as a company, Windward, our trust service offering is to have trustees work with our experienced professional team. So we provide insight often into the terms of the trust, help identify and make a plan for the trust's requirements. We often say the same thing to our Windward clients that are individuals and families as well as trusts. Like, two of the most important things that we do are to help clients develop a plan and avoid major mistakes. That's exactly what we're trying to do with trustees in our trust service as well.
Another question that Erica and her um, brothers have is who is developing the investment plan? And if the trust needs ongoing investment management, they can decide to self-manage the investments or they can seek professional management. And managing the investments of an ongoing trust is a time commitment and there is risk for liability. Um, it's one thing to manage your own portfolio of investments, but it's a whole other thing when you are a fiduciary managing a trust. The trustee is responsible for identifying what the investment strategy is. Is it preservation? Is it growth? Is it a combination of the two? And understanding the purpose and intention of the trust, as well as the needs of the beneficiaries, is fundamental to backing into how it should be invested. In Erica's situation, she and her brothers may be in different life stages with different needs, and all of this needs to be considered and reviewed when managing the trust investments. Additionally, staying on top of and monitoring the asset allocation of the trust, having an understanding of what's going on in the markets, as well as keeping up with the beneficiaries' changing needs, may be straightforward for some situations, but oftentimes it's not. And having professional investment management can be helpful and worth the cost. The trustee is also responsible for complying with the terms of the trust and reporting to beneficiaries. So this means communicating transactions, investment strategy, and any changes that are made along the way. And all of this takes time and energy, and working with a wealth management team who can assist may be helpful.
So, at this point, Erica and her siblings are like, okay, this is a lot. Well, like, can an attorney just like do all this for us? How do attorneys fit into this? And glad to have a couple of attorneys on the webinar with us. And the main point is absolutely attorneys have a vital role when it comes to trusts and the considerations and administering trust, because the attorney, they're the ones who can apply legal advice, have experience with trust implementation, and really especially early on in the early stages when there's maybe a person has just died and there's lots of things happening, and okay, how do we really get this thing going? But a trustee, their responsibility extends beyond legal needs. Like, the trustee is the one responsible for the implementation, and it's a big job. And if it's a new role that a person hasn't held before, it is often helpful that the trustee needs someone looking at the bigger picture. And Windward often gets to be a liaison, with the attorney and with all the other moving pieces. So our clients who are individuals serving as trustee of a trust work together with a professional team. They use an estate attorney to provide legal advice while utilizing Windward with the investment management, developing the plan, and the ongoing implementation to have a holistic approach with their role.
Another question that Erica and her brothers have is how does the money actually get distributed? And we refer to this as distribution management. And the distributions primarily come down to what is written in the trust. So perhaps Gary Stone has bequests to charities or his church off the top or priority number one, and then the rest is left to his heirs. There may or may not be strings attached to how and when the heirs receive their share of the trust assets. How trust distributions get processed logistically can be cumbersome for some individuals without a wealth management team to assist them. For example, Gary's trust may require quarterly distributions of income that's earned by the trust assets, or the required minimum distribution from his IRA may need to be paid out annually. We like to diagram out exactly what the distributions and new accounts may look like for the trustees. So for Erica, this is what Gary Stone's trust diagram would look like. And the blue assets above the line represent the assets while Gary was living. And below the line in orange represent kind of what it would look like now that Gary is deceased. The accounts in orange represent new accounts that need to be established, and the assets in the blue accounts transfer into the orange accounts, and then the distributions can happen. So, for example, a trust like Erica's father's would need its own EIN or TIN before being distributed to heirs. And this is so that the investment activity gets accurately reported to the IRS and the beneficiaries. If the trust allows for immediate and outright distribution, the heirs can receive the money and take it as their own. If the trust does not allow for this, that's when an investment plan needs to be established by the trustee. Qualified retirement assets. So in this example, Gary's IRA has its own separate set of rules to follow. In Erica's example, she and her brothers would need to transfer the old 401k or IRA into an inherited IRA. And from there, depending on how the trust is written, they would have 5 to 10 years to empty the IRA, and they'd have to continue required minimum distributions every year. And this is just for Erica's case. The rules around IRAs have changed a lot recently, and they may differ for different kinds of situations, and it needs careful consideration. IRA money in this example essentially passes through the irrevocable trust and to the beneficiaries. And these transfers and distributions need to be communicated and recorded for the beneficiaries. And distribution management and logistics of distribution naturally leads to the next question.
Because within all of the distributions, they naturally, may be saying, what's the tax impact of all this? And we have three mantras at Windward with our clients: develop a plan, avoid major mistakes, and minimize tax. And so, working alongside a Windward team allows trustees to make a comprehensive tax plan for the trust, and often, for the beneficiaries as well. Oftentimes, trusts need to file tax returns, which Windward can prepare on a case-by-case basis. And the trust tax return may produce tax forms, for the beneficiaries as well. So some people, when they help out, like in this case, maybe Gary Stone, maybe he had his own CPA. So some trusts may already have a CPA in place for the individual. And then that CPA maybe will continue to do the work, for this ongoing trust. Well, if that's the case, we get to collaborate with the CPA, with the trustee from a tax planning standpoint. That may involve tax projections for the trust, tax planning for the beneficiaries, and paying attention to dividends, capital gains, other income. And just like Emily went through in that previous example, if the trust includes retirement assets, Windward may also get to assist with any required minimum distribution planning that happens. So, Windward collaborates with trustees throughout the year when they're a client with things like tax projections. We often look with trustees throughout the year to consider, the impact of different tax scenarios. So the next slide shows just kind of a snapshot of a hypothetical tax projection that we often use to review the tax impact of different income scenarios. So, it may be that if income stays within the trust, there could be a different tax impact than if it gets distributed to the beneficiaries. And we work alongside the trustee, all along the way to make sure it's considered and thoughtful, follows the terms of the trust, and that people are prepared and handle things, in an appropriate way. Um, Ultimately, trustees, they need a team that includes accountants, includes attorneys, but the trustees also can benefit from our Windward's trust service offering to walk alongside and to guide through the big picture and the important details.
Agreed. Just like Drew said, at the heart of Erica and her brother's question is, can we do this by ourselves? And it is much easier and much more compliant, and um, it's a way to mitigate risks by working with that trifecta of professionals, a wealth management team, an attorney, and a CPA to help execute the trust or administer the trust. And at Windward, we make it really simple and walk alongside you as trustee. If you're like Erica and who just lost her father after dealing with a terminal illness, you're she's dealing with a lot and she's grieving, and adding this trust administration on top of it might just be too much. And maybe, you watching this webinar are not in this situation right now as an active trustee, but maybe you know that you are successor trustee of your mom and dad's trust or another family member's trust. And we encourage you to think about some high level considerations as you being trustee when that time comes. Have you seen a copy of the trust? Have you had conversations about expectations about how that trust is to be administered and what your role may look like? This may be something to consider. Or maybe you have questions about your own trust and what that exactly would look like upon your own passing. Or who may be a backup successor trustee if who you named is no longer around. We can help with all this and answer questions that you may have in association with your attorney about your role as trustee. So with that, I believe we have time for a question or two if anyone has questions.
Yeah, so if there's anything that you're thinking about that you want to ask, feel free to put that down in the Q&A box down below. One thing that I saw, that was is a question is, are there irrevocable trusts that happen before death? Yeah, so what we described, was that idea that, a lot of folks may have a revocable living trust. At their death, it becomes irrevocable. And that's the scenario that, we described here for, Gary Stone. But there are scenarios where a person may create an irrevocable trust while they're living. Usually that would be estate strategy of getting assets out of a person's estate to, so that uh, at different points in time, the estate tax, which is, a tax that can happen upon your death, if a person has assets higher than the estate tax, they may owe tax just on the actual assets, to the government. So sometimes it's a strategy for people to get assets out of their estate, and they create an irrevocable trust. In that case, they may then, have someone be a trustee that could be a fit for this scenario. So that trustee, is in charge of that trust, but they may, be a good candidate, kind of for this windward trust service, as one example. And maybe just one other high level point about that: the estate tax has ebbed and flowed at different points in time in terms of what the amount of money is. And one of the pieces that we might have a separate webinar on this, at some point here in the future. But the current estate tax, and shoot, I don't have the number in front of me. I don't know if you do, Emily. It's between 12 and $13 million, that the estate tax. So if an individual has under 12 or $13 million, then they would not pay any estate tax. So that number is basically double the amount that it was, when the kind of Trump tax law took effect in 2017. Well, it's set to expire at the end of 2025. And that all could change, if new tax law is written. And so I don't know, it's beyond the scope for today. But the point is, if the estate tax drops, significantly, say in 2026, irrevocable trusts probably are going to be something to consider. And some folks may do that thing. So that's obviously, conversations with an attorney and being able to think things through, and being really thoughtful and careful about it. But you could have an irrevocable trust, before a person dies, that Windward could help, walk alongside with our trust service.
So with that, we're here, available to answer any questions you have. Here's our contact information. Um, and you may not have questions now, but know that this is a service that we provide, and we're here to help. Um, with
There's
that, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, one quick point. A couple folks here chimed in just at the last minute, kind of asking, hey, what's the cost, to continue with Windward, with the help of a trustee? Is the fee structure the same based on the current investment account? Yeah, generally speaking, our fee structure is very similar to what it, or essentially the same, um, as our wealth management offering. So we'd be happy to have a conversation, talk to you more about it, how it works. But it's the same type of thing. So man, what timing! It just for the lights to go out,
I know.
um in Emily's office,
I know.
which must mean it's about time to be done. So we really do appreciate, you all, hopping on, be a part of this. And we're here to help. We look forward to chatting with you more about it and seeing ways that we can serve you.
Thank you for your time today.
Yeah, go Chiefs.
Bye.